Hi, this is News and Views. Thanks for joining us. My name's Renee Ing, and today we're talking about housing first. Two meanings for housing first with Jenny Lee. Thank you so much, Jenny, for coming to do this show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Sure, and you're from the Hawaii Appleseed Center. Yeah. Could you tell me a little bit about the center, about yourself, how you're in, this quest for affordable housing?
Well, Hawaii Appleseed is a nonprofit advocacy organization that engages in a variety of strategies to improve the lives of low-income people here in Hawaii. So one of the we've worked historically in litigation, but now we also have branched into greater community advocacy as well as legislative advocacy. And one of the areas that we are focusing extensively on is the creation of more affordable housing. And that's really an issue that touches everybody, whether you yourself are working in a service job, someone experiencing homelessness, or you have children. Exactly. Grow up here and they can't afford to live here, end up moving to the mainland. Really, it's something that it matters to all of us, that everybody in our community has a good place to live.
Exactly. And you're a lawyer with the Hawaii Appleseed Center, I understand. So thank you so much for being so interested in this topic. I really appreciate it, because people need to see what's out there. They need pictures. And later on we'll go over some pictures that you gave this show so that we could show people what there is. Anyway, but the title of today's show has two meanings, actually. It says Hawaii needs of housing first. And the first meaning, you were talking on a recent show, Island Insights, about how the Mayor Caldwell's Housing First initiative. Could you talk, because he was trying to help the homeless population, the chronic homeless, and they are the ones most in need of a roof over their heads. So could you talk about this first definition of housing first?
Well, Housing First is a concept, a program that acknowledges everybody needs housing. And until you have a secure, stable place to live, then you're not going to be able to take care of your other needs. So while there are many people experiencing homelessness who are working, it's still incredibly challenging, especially when you have other issues like physical health conditions, mental health, substance or alcohol use disorders. Children. There's so many reasons it can be very, very difficult to stabilize until you have a place to live, somewhere you're going to be able to come home to. And so Housing First, when people are experiencing homelessness, instead of putting people through an emergency shelter, then transitional housing, and then permanent housing, they immediately place people in permanent housing. So say, for example, if someone has an alcohol use disorder, then once they go into permanent housing, it lets them more easily cope with it, and they receive supportive services to help them be sure that they're able to go into recovery and be a good tenant and then get their life back together.
Right. I saw, part of the reason I'm interested in this is I saw a documentary on TV, and it showed how these people who went into Housing First permanent housing were able to get their lives together, and a big part of the reason because they had a roof over their heads and some security.
Right, and it's definitely the most effective way to reduce chronic homelessness, and those are the folks we see who are sleeping out on the streets or camped in the parks. People that have experienced multiple episodes of homelessness or have been homeless even for years now, some of those folks. And cities have seen huge success. And those are also, unfortunately, the people, because they tend to get so many illnesses, they actually impose the greatest costs on our healthcare system or incarceration, all of those issues. So, for example, Utah's had Housing First as a statewide model in place for about 7 years now, and they've reduced chronic homelessness by 75%. Every year it keeps going down almost 10% a year. Or the city of Seattle, housing just 95 people with alcohol use disorders that have been chronically homeless. They saved $4 million overall by reducing all the costs associated with emergency room visits or treatment services, police and security costs. So you really see this is, if we want to change things, this is clearly the way to go. City after city has adopted this and really seen results. And it's the right thing to do. People need homes. And it makes sense. You're not going to get off of drugs if you don't have anywhere to go at night.
Right, and life is awful, and you need drugs to block out the awfulness. Yes, but a home rather, roof over your head makes so much of a difference. And then I want to talk mostly about the second definition. You know, we have a housing crisis because we don't have enough affordable housing. And we want to prevent the homeless crisis to begin with. So first we need to have housing that people can afford. And that's what the rest of this show is going to be about. And as we know that a lot of the homeless are working homeless. And but there are some obstacles to getting this affordable housing. And I'd like you to talk about first the definition of affordable, which is defined as 140% of AMI, the average or area median income, 140% affordable.
Right. So it goes up when we talk about creating affordable housing, like in Kaka'ako. A lot of those units are for people at 100% to 140% of the area median income. And so since housing costs are so high in Hawaii, many of those folks do have a tough time finding a nice place to live where they might want to live.
Economy rental.
Right. But then we have folks going down, 80, 60, 30% of the area median income. We have our kapuna living on supplemental Social Security income, and that's about $700 a month. So people receiving some form of Social Security benefits, people working at minimum wage, they can only
single parents.
Right. They can only afford a few $100s per month in rent.
Right.
So and there just aren't any units. You're not able to find a unit for $300, $400, $500 a month.
It doesn't exist practically.
And we see 75% of people living in poverty are paying more than half of their income on housing. So think about how much that leaves you left over at the end of the month to spend on food, health care, clothes, things for your children, transportation. All of this, it's a very, very tight squeeze. And it really, even there, you start to see it touches so many things. It's an issue for children's education. It's an issue for public health, people who spend so much on housing. The list goes on about how important it is that you have a place, not only the roof over your head, but that you aren't breaking the bank and deciding where to spend your money if you buy bread or pay your electric bill at the end of the month. That's one other thing to keep in mind is that we actually have the highest cost of electricity in the nation. So you look at the rent,
housing,
and housing certainly. Yes, that doesn't. Yeah, sometimes it feels like that doesn't even need to be said. But exactly. But it just so many things it stacks on. So even above the base rent, you're paying a huge electricity bill.
And I'd like to remind people also that median income is the point at which half of the people are above that income level and half of the people are below that income level. So that means if median income per capita for an individual is $30,000 a year, half of our population, individuals, are earning under $30,000, and if you pay a third of your monthly income for rent, we're talking about to be truly economical for the person to be only 1/3 of their income, it needs to be in the hundreds of dollars, $500, $600, $700, $800, instead of the over $1,000 for a studio that you see nowadays. It's nuts. And there's so many, singles, so many seniors, so many, retired, so many single parents that we need a lot of affordable housing. And that's where I want to come to some of the things that you folks at the Appleseed Center have contributed to this show. I want to show you, draw a picture, if you will, of what there is out there. And it's so good to hear you talking about it, Jenny, because it gives me hope that we can do something here. And this here, if we'll bring this up for the audience, is a picture of, I'll call it an economy studio, just to for the understanding for, a mass audience, because, I mean, if we go through all these other terms, we'll get totally confused. I guess this is also called a micro unit.
That's right. That's one of the terms, because there's sometimes between say 300 square feet or 350 square feet down to even sometimes 150 or a
Right.
little smaller, depending
Yeah.
on if you share your
Uh-huh.
kitchen, those sort of things. So
Yeah.
right, there's a lot of different terms, single room occupancy,
Yeah.
but the concept is a very small space that meets the needs of usually a single person there, sometimes a couple or two people.
Or single
right.
parent
Yeah.
with some kids. And actually, this is not quite, it's shy of 300 feet for this studio. 200, I don't know.
It's about 280 feet.
Okay.
This is a building that's been done in Portland, Oregon.
And this is what the floor plan looks like. As you can see, there's a little kitchen here. Oops. A little kitchen here, and then a little bathroom, and then, a little living room. And I've added on to the pictures that you gave me, because my husband and I live in a studio, and so this is very dear to my heart. And we're one of those below median people too. Anyway, and so one of the things that, looking at your website about economy units, is that architect that was talking about that beautiful economy unit was saying that what a unit like this needs a lot of times is build-ins, so that if you have, like here, it's called a Murphy bed, but it's like the wall unit opens up, and then you can drop down into a Murphy bed at night. And then this also has a fold-down table. It could be a mirror on the wall, and then you fold down, to become a table at dinner time or homework time. And the rest of the time, you lift it all up. And then if you have a kid, they have a bigger play area since it's so tiny to begin with. And then on top of that, one of the units had a window seat. So if you put a futon on this window seat here, the kid could sleep there. So I thought it was great, that site. If people want to see it, you can go to the site that's under your tag, Jenny's tag. It's hawaiiappleseed.org, and you go to affordable.
hiappleseed.org, and then you can click through the links to go to our affordable housing page.
Yeah.
hiappleseed.org /affordable-housing. So, or of course you can always Google, and it should come up as well. So,
Yeah.
quick way to do it.
Yeah, well, so many people need, median income here is so low, and so many people need it because half are above median and half are below, and that's an awful lot of our population. And then I wanted to just run through this quickly here, because there's this, you were also saying this also exists on the mainland.
Definitely cities all over are doing this.
I just thought of it out of my head, and I was talking to this architect, and he was saying, yeah, they have that. And I said, oh, wow, okay, this over here is that studio we were just looking at. And then the idea is to, on top of this here, you add one bedroom, yeah? There's the doorway over here, and you add one bedroom that can house, you can have two people here, one on this bed and one under the window, but then you can also have two people in this bedroom here, and you can even have two bedrooms attached to the studio, and it has exactly the amount of, the same footprint, exactly the amount of square footage in the two bedrooms as you have in the studio. And then later on, we'll talk about a little bit about stacking and how that it makes a difference that the units are all kind of the same size. And then I just want to fly through this. The other thing is, it would be nice if they talk about this in smart growth. If you had affordable small business rentals on the bottom, and then economy units, economy rentals on top of them, up to say the 4th floor. And then if you want to have the project be more financially feasible to have, more affordable rentals on top, which would be bigger units, washer and dryer in the unit or whatever.
Right, that makes sense because one of your absolute biggest costs, the one you can't really get around right now, is land.
Yeah.
So if you build up and then you have some more expensive units,
Yeah.
effectively, the cost of the land is the same. So you're adding density, and then with mixed income, these more expensive units then can help subsidize, effectively keep the cost down for the smaller units and the people
Right.
who are low income need affordable housing.
And then is the retail, the small business rental, does that bring in more revenue than a residence?
Right, because you can charge the commercial rate, and they have a built-in customer base. So, so I think that's good. That's a great idea, especially as well with ideas about walkable communities or just livable communities where people don't have to go far to
Do your laundry.
or grab something, or
right.
grab the groceries.
Right.
Just having that convenience right there, less reliance on cars as well. That's another big benefit.
Yeah, that's great. And you drag yourself home from work, you really don't want to cook. Yeah, and you hear about other places where, they practically live on the street. Their houses, apartments are so small, like this guy from China was saying his parents go out to eat every night and go meet their friends.
It's like New York. Really, the idea is you're spending a lot of your time elsewhere. So if you're working and then on the weekend you're at the beach, you're going out, if you're just not there that much, why do you need this huge space?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
kind of the whole island is where you live in a sense.
Right.
Right. We have so much beautiful nature here. We want to spend our time outdoors and not in our apartments, no
Yeah.
matter how big they are, I think.
Yeah, picnic with friends is really nice. Yeah, and then, we talked about mixed use, commercial and residential on top, and we talked about mixed income, having economy rentals and affordable rentals. But you were talking about, on Island Insights, a template for affordable housing. You want to talk a little bit about that?
So my the idea behind that is that one of the big costs is designing something from scratch every single time, because not only are you
yes.
coming up with the floor plans and the building design, but you're also figuring out the construction methods that you need to use, going through all of these additional steps that we could maybe simplify by coming up with a sort of template that can be reused for affordable housing projects all over. So instead of reinventing the wheel, basically. So we know obviously there's going to have to be modifications for the site, but if we think something like these economy units, there's suit a lot of different people. So right now we have Kapuna housing, and we have small apartments for people, single people or working people. We've got all of these people that actually don't really have that different of needs. So you might need to tweak it a little, but basically they just need a place to live, a place with bed, a place to eat, a bathroom, those really basic things. So if we come up with a template, then we can reuse that, and that's a big benefit, I think, to trying to change the design process to some extent, how we think about working through this each time.
And you were talking about, I forget the name of it now, was it Santa Cruz?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
so that was to do with accessory dwelling units. So that's similar to Ohana housing. That's the same concept, but right now there are a lot of restrictions